let's move on to our next topic.
You got it.
Rocco, let's do your topic. Let's get a little
Okay.
serious here.
Oh, get serious. Okay. Well, let's talk about drones. So drones are one of our new, not new. I mean, it's been out for a few years and stuff like that. But one of our ways of combat nowadays is using drones. So there's a new movie coming out. It's a movie done called Drone. It's about drones and about like the experience of going through that all.
Yeah.
Being one of the military guys involved in it. And there's a guy named Brandon Bryant. He's kind of he's like one of the heroes right now. Coming out and speaking about, he's from the Air Force, and coming out and speaking about his experience with being a drone fighter and a drone pilot. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play a little a part right here, and this is from the trailer for the movie Drone. And you're going to be able to hear what he has to say himself about his experience being a drone pilot.
Okay.
And then we'll go a little further from there.
Okay.
Really understand what it meant to kill at first.
Can you guys hear that good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was horrible. The first time was horrible. The second time was horrible.
He's talking about killing with the
The
drones
third
up.
time was numbing. The fourth time was numbing.
Huh.
But of course, the first time sticks with you the longest. So we're looking at this thing, these people, and it was like almost instantaneous that someone was like, confirmed weapons, here's the 9 line, you're cleared hot.
Huh.
And we fire the missile. And the safety observer's counting down. He counts down to 0. And he says, splash!
Splash
When
is
the-
the term.
When the rocket hits.
Yeah. Huh.
I watched this man bleed out. The missile had taken off one of his legs right above the knee. And I watched him bleed out of his femoral artery. And he's rolling on the ground. And I imagined his last moments. I didn't know what to feel. I just knew that I had ended something that I had no right to end. But I swore an oath. I did what I was supposed to do. I followed through with it. It was like
Isn't this a terrorist?
my image of myself was cracking and breaking apart. And the safety observer laughs and he slaps me on the back and says, you should have seen how you jumped when I said splash.
That's Brandon Bryant in the film Drone that's opening tonight in New York.
I'm gonna let you guys hear this little segment
Brandon
for just
Bryant is
about a
with
little
us
bit more.
now. Do you know who you killed?
No. I killed 13 people.
13.
With a total of 5 Hellfire missile shots, and only 3 of them were actual combatants.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Wow.
13 people. Only 3 were actually combatants. That's one of the big issues with drone attacks right now, okay? Because right now he says he's coming out and he's speaking about it, and sure, he has the possibility of being convicted of war crimes because 10 of these individuals aren't even combatants. They're not even part of the target.
But when you, isn't that some of the MO of these terrorist organizations where, like, if you watched not Black Hawk Down, Zero Dark 30, or some of these other, like specifically about the operation that went to go find Osama bin Laden, there was like a big castle or like home or whatever. It was mainly surrounded by women, children, and like sons.
Yeah.
And this is what they do. They camp out in a place amongst civilians to know that they wouldn't get killed, and so they go in, troops on the ground, and there's a lot of casualties. They shoot the son, they shoot the because like a lot of these people, all those civilians, not quote unquote combatants, have guns at the ready and use it. So you know, what do you do in those cases if they're yeah? So like I mean, that's the moral question. Is it right?
That's the moral question. That's what he's speaking about too. He's saying, you know, his image of himself is breaking. His moral self is breaking. He gets to the point where he says, you know, first one is horrible, second one is horrible, third one is numbing, fourth one is numbing. It gets to the point where it's just like you're no longer thinking about it. You're sending out a Hellfire missile that's going to have several different missiles coming down in a certain location, just blowing up the whole area.
Right.
And he even speaks about later on. I mean, I watched some different interviews that, you know, a lot of these people in this area, Afghanistan, they have weapons, yes, but a lot of them are protecting themselves from the Taliban too, just the same as what our U.S. military has to do as well. And we're just going, hey, he's got a gun, hey, he must be a combatant, sent out a missile, and there's a lot of casualties that are happening that are not the targets. You know, like he said, 13 people that he killed, 3 of them were targets, but 10 of them were just innocent individuals that just got hit in the crossfire. And do we think that that's okay? Like, I'm sure there's individuals out here that say, yeah, whatever, that's a part of war. Yeah, and that's fine because it's happening in a different country. But let's say that that's happening here at your house, and your next door neighbor is a very bad guy, a terrorist, and they decide to throw a missile down that kills you, all of your family, and your neighbors, and that guy that was a bad guy. But is that right? Is that just? Is that moral? And is that like... One, that's going against the rules of war, you know? That's where the war crimes come into play. I mean, we persecuted Nazis for this kind of deal, and we even put the laws together through the international courts to say, hey, this is how it's going to go. But, yeah, we don't want to take responsibility ourselves when we go and we kill several other civilians and then, you know, try as hard as we can to cover it all up and say, you know, well, it's just casualties of war.
It's interesting because it's certainly a hot topic in the debates recently, especially amongst the Republican Party, asking presidential candidates, you know, are you comfortable with carpet bombing? And most presidents candidates, they beat around the bush, but they say they'll do what's necessary. They kind of leave it at that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we will carpet bomb if it means we'll get like a major terrorist. So. And there's a lot of people who feel really strongly about, like, look, if we need to take this guy out, we need to bomb the whole place. And then, you know...
I mean, you got people that have the mindset of, like, Donald Trump, okay? When asked about how do you take care of these, like, terrorists, he says, kill them all, kill their families, kill their children, kill them all.
Right.
And there's people out there that they believe that. They think that and you know what? That's going to be a second part of this topic right here, which is about an article written by the Dalai Lama. And if you don't know who that is out there, that is a person that's like one of the forefront for humanitarians. And he speaks about it's just kind of like a brainwashing where we've been allowed to believe that this is okay. Right. We've been allowed to believe that war is even okay.
Right.
And I'll read about that a little bit later. But I wanted to get you guys' your points on, you know, drone warfare. Is that okay? Is it? Like he said, the third kill, the fourth kill became numbing because he's sitting behind a screen. And yes, he's taking some personal responsibility for it, but not everybody is. Now, he also speaks that the vision or the idea, what people imagine when they think about the drone pilot, is this guy that has a tattoo with Hellfire missiles and he's writing 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm killing a bunch of people. Yeah, I'm the badass, you know? Yeah. When he says that most of them they feel wrong about what they're doing. That's the few, that's the radical, and there's not many of those individuals at all within this program. He says the rest of them are just people, and they feel terrible about what is happening.
And that's where it slips through, because the military, that's what you go to training for. They sit there and they break you, they brainwash you. That's all you need to know is just do what you're told and don't question it at all.
So that's what he says here. He swore an oath to uphold the Constitution.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and he says, and then being told that I got to do this, he said, I try to get a different job, I try to do different things to get out of this, and you know, they say you got to do it. You know, you're ordered to do it, and he He kept on doing it until he said enough is enough, and I got to speak up about, because a lot of us don't know what's happening with the drones. It's very secretive information.
Yeah.
It's held by the president and the cabinet, and then there's only like little leaks that come out here and there that allows the public to know exactly what's occurring and what's happening.
Right.
And then individuals like Brandon Bryant, who speaks out about it heavily, that says, "Hey, I was a pilot for this drone program, and look what's happening, and it's not okay, and it's not." War is war, and I get it. It's disgusting. It's ugly, but this is beyond war. This is terrorism at that point.
Well, it's not terrorism. It's not terrorism.
In the sense of, like, they're taking out civilian. I mean, so it's like they're taking out. It's not terrorism. They're trying to look for a certain target, but they're killing.
It's irresponsible warfare. I would label it. I wouldn't label it as terrorism, just because of the context of the situation, the goals of the situation. It seems like they are. In like carpet bombing, it is the word is in itself. It is a widespread, inaccurate, just one swoop, broad stroke, kill everything in its path, in the hopes that you kill the one thing that you need, even if it means you kill 30 other things. Right? It's irresponsible. It's efficient in its own sense, I guess. But like, I don't know. I struggle with this.
Would we be so rational and logical if that was carpet bombing was happening from, say, the Afghanistan army, and they were looking for specific targets here in the United States that were obviously against Afghanistan, and then they're carpet bombing all over here? Would we be so unemotionally connected? We would be like, yeah, it's not terrorism. Or we'd be like, those are fucking terrorists. This is bad. This is
right.
You're murdering everybody, and it's not the people that you're really looking for. If you wanted to go for that specific individual, and it is war, and there is casualties, get boots on the ground and do it. And you're gonna lose some guys to get that and to get that to happen, but you're gonna have less. You're gonna have less civilian casualties with that than a carpet bombing situation.
So I completely agree, but it's like it's a messy thing, right? Like it's contextually important for each different scenario. So if you look at I do like drones for the fact that we don't have to put troops on the ground. I think that's really important, and I think that should be what we move towards. But I at the same time, I completely agree with you, and especially when you put it in the context of, well, if we had terrorists doing things from our country to another country, and they decided to carpet bomb us, that would be a different story. But like if we it's not that easy to parallel. I think you have to actually look at like what kind of targets are we targeting? Are we targeting in the city? Are we targeting shacks out in the middle of nowhere that just happen to have because there's international laws that say you can't harbor terrorists. If you harbor terrorists, you are by association a part of that. And I don't care if you're a goddamn accountant in the Afghanistan world. If you know what you're doing, then you are there by association a terrorist. It's a different story.
You're saying these people knew that those guys were there?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying in a certain scenario that could happen, and therefore then I think it's just that although they're not, it's hard to say, oh, they're not.
Why don't we just nuke the whole place then?
No,
he's saying if they're harboring a terrorist, and you're not supposed to be harboring a terrorist,
now
then you are essentially.
What's the difference between carpet bombing 13 individuals to get 3 than just to nuke a place and get the whole place and then just kill the rest of the people too as well?
Because they're just saying, well,
what I'm saying is, so hear me out. Okay, so this is why it's so complicated, is because each point I'm making has multiple different scenarios that you have to take into association. It's not as easy as saying they're not combatants, we kill them, and that's wrong, because you really have to dig into the details, right? So the first point is this a citywide, like, is this an urban place or is it a rural place? Because both have very different effects, right? If you're aiming one area in an urban place, you are by almost 100% affecting the surrounding areas that are arguably not going to be small businesses and families and stuff like that. If it's a rural area, you have a house in the middle of nowhere, arguably a lot safer carpet bomb. Now, you go to the next point. Are these people harboring the terrorists and knowing about it, because therefore they're by association terrorists themselves?
Their hands being forced.
That's the other thing. Now, are they being forced and kidnapped to do this? Now, because if that's the case, I completely disagree with the carpet bombing situation. See, it's very messy. It's very contextual. And I think you really need to know.
Is that information going to be known by any other?
God.
I'm not sure 100%, or if it's just like we're going to be like, yeah, we're going to do that for our documentation. We're going to say that yes, they were harboring that terrorist, but we really weren't sure. We just knew that the guy was in this area, located in this building, and we don't really know if they're all saying they're a part of it, or they're being held hostage in a sense because they just want to have 15 children running around so that they hopefully don't get carpet bombed. But these 15 children are stuck in this location, this rural area.
So
by
here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that goes into it. So are they all adults? And if they are they harboring knowingly or are they being forced? Okay, that's the one flow chart. The other flow chart, if I would imagine, if there's any kids involved at all, you immediately take carpet bombing out of the equation, because I believe that regardless of like a child, there's still these juvenile thoughts that there's a reason why we have a juvenile system, right? There are kids that murder when they're 15 or 12, not knowing the repercussions of what they're doing, but because of the system they were in, they were like just not forced to do it, but they like unknowingly knew what they were doing, if that makes sense. And after a couple
your video froze. Okay, never mind, it's back.
After years of rehabilitation, they're okay with society. So if there's kids in these situations, I think you go boots in the ground or you figure another situation. Like, I think it's unjust to kill children in this case for the sake of killing these terrorists.
In another interview, he speaks about there was children in this in a situation, and they were killed too.
Yeah.
And they said, it looked like a little person coming up, and they said that there was only these bad guys inside the building. This is the military boots on the ground saying this. There's only the bad guys in the building. We've been watching them for 3 days. That's it. There's people that are with him, terrorism with him. He's looking at the screen. He's like, there's definitely little people here. Like, there's kids. But they still save fire, and he does his job because he's ordered to, and he sends out the Hellfire missile, and it does kill other individuals that are not, like we're saying, with children, that clearly the information that's coming back seems like it's just pro-kill anybody, and we're just going to make in the documentation whatever it is that we need to make it
and
work.
It's not easy, too. Here's what it comes down to, too. And then, there's just so many layers to this. It's a fucking onion, right? There is a legitimate animalistic sense I get from this thought process, right? There's definitely, I definitely side with some of the government / military's thought process. We could have another Boston bombing, and there could be our own, right? If I could parallel that, it's like you and your family, or this and that family. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna actually sacrifice your kids, for another, when it comes down push and shove, you're gonna fight for your family. And if
Absolutely.
we treat the rest of the Americans here in this country as our family, and we look at it as a way of I want the least amount of terrorist attacks on our country. I don't want another Boston bombing. I don't want something that happened to Paris or Belgium to happen here in America. If I don't strike now, we lose the chance of getting this major head in the Al-Qaeda or ISIS. He gets away. They get one step closer to actually fulfilling a terrorist attack. You have to weigh those options, and it's okay, do I have to kill a couple
But
of
I think
civilians
that
for
we
this?
we become that evil, though. We become that guy. I think that if we need to hold ourselves and our moral standards on a higher platform than just be the same as what they do. It's just
okay, it's like Batman, right? It's like ideally, and I hear what you're saying, Rocco, and I agree with you, but again, if we try to boil it down to its most binary situation, Batman can either here's what he can do. He has a moral code that he doesn't want to kill, which is kind of what you're describing, right? Let's not kill, but bad guy has gun to kid's head.
Yeah.
I either kill bad guy or I let kid die. What do you
or
do? No.
I
what I'm
carpet
saying,
bomb and kill kid and bad guy. This is what we're doing. You know what I mean? That's where it's
okay.
That where it's
no. In this scenario, the kid is our people and the bad guy is the terrorist.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do?
You kill bad guy in that scenario.
Okay.
And that's not something I have a problem with. What I do have the problem with is that what we're doing is we're killing bad guy and kid, because we say it's justified to kill the bad guy. We can kill the kid too, because now we don't have a Paris bombing or a Boston bombing because that bad guy's dead.
Okay, here you go. Put you in this scenario. Bad guy has gun to kid's head. Okay?
Yeah.
You can let bad guy kill kid, or you can kill bad guy knowing that when the bad guy's heart drops, bomb kills his kids. What do you do?
You mean, okay, so I kill the bad guy, then the bomb kills the kid?
No, the bomb kills the bad guy's kids.
The bad guy's kids.
Or you let bad guy kill kid.
That's like, I mean,
Yeah, these are the
that's
type of decisions that I feel like definitely that they're gonna have to make, right? You either kill these people who are not my people, and I get a one up on the terrorists so that they do not be able to like grow anymore, or it cuts off a piece of the head so that they can't organize a terrorist attack on Boston or Belgium or
so let's
Paris.
talk about growing anymore, okay? We've got 3
Hold
that
on.
got killed, and let's talk. And we got, and they
But you
have
understand
3.
what I'm saying?
No, I do, but also look at it this way too. So we got 3 guys that we killed that were actually combatants, and they have children, and now those children have become terrorists because their fathers were killed, and they were combatants,
Sure.
and they're like rah 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 angry.
Sure.
But look at the other 10 that were killed that were civilians.
Yeah.
Now going to be terrorists too as well because their parents were just killed by U.S. military for
Sure.
no apparent reason.
Sure.
And now you've got 30 terrorists instead of just
That's a
3
fair point.
terrorists. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, look at how many terrorists we're creating because of the actions we're taking.
Totally.
And then we're trying to justify those actions. It's
Totally.
like, well, now we're going to have a shitload more terrorists and a lot more opportunities of Paris or Belgium or Boston bombings because of what we're doing, the actions we're taking
Yeah.
and trying to justify.
Yeah,
That's
I
where it's
mean,
like,
Yeah, isn't that how, like, I mean, ISIS was that kind of a group, wasn't it? Like they're radicalists or something like that. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They're radical,
before
religious.
that it was the Al Qaeda, right?
Mhm.
and they still exist, and they're
Yeah.
2 different
And
groups
like,
entirely.
and
Yeah.
these
They're
are
not,
like,
they weren't branched from one another.
Yeah, Al Qaeda's more military, and ISIS is religious based.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they're both religious
So-
based.
yeah,
so-
but still they're being, yeah.
I like our points right here, but let me do something from the Dalai Lama, a little article real quick, okay?
Okay.
So modern warfare waged primarily with different forms of fire, but we are so conditioned to see it as thrilling that we talk about this or that marvelous weapon as a remarkable piece of technology without remembering that if it is actually used, it will burn living people. War also strongly resembles a fire in the way it spreads. If one area gets weak, the commanding officer sends in reinforcements. This is throwing live people onto a fire. But because we have been brainwashed to think this way, we do not consider the suffering of individual soldiers. No soldiers want to be wounded or die. None of his loved ones wants any harm to come to him. If one soldier is killed or maimed for life, at least another 5 or 10 people, his relatives and friends, suffer as well. We should all be horrified by the extent of this tragedy, but we are too confused. No matter how malevolent or evil are the many murderous dictators who can currently oppress their nations and cause international problems, it is obvious that they cannot harm others or destroy countless human lives if they don't have a military organization accepted and condemned by society. We should feel fed up with the violence and killing going on around us. If a human being is killed by an animal, it's sad. But if a human being is killed by another human being, it's unthinkable. We have to make a special effort to think of each other as fellow human beings, as our brothers and sisters. Essentially just saying, it's a concept that he goes on to say, like, a lot of individuals are praying to God and saying, please help us, like, we need to get out of this kind of situation. He's like, but this is a man-made problem. We created this. We created this mentality that it's okay to be, to have a military that goes out and does these kind of things. Like terrorism, it gets that it exists. There is individuals that are out there and they're trying to kill other individuals. But the fact that we're so pro-military and pro-death, like, it's just, it's a never-ending cycle, essentially, that's going to keep perpetuating more war and more killing and more acceptable. It's acceptable mentally to think things like, okay, that's fine to happen, where it shouldn't be. It should be condemned. It should be, we don't do that in action. We don't take lives, because it's a cycle that never ends at that point. We need to figure out a different way, like the Batman way. We need to figure out a way to cause justice instead of, or to receive justice instead of just thinking vengeance, and I think it's like he speaks about it as just a mass brain wash, essentially. And I can see that. I mean, we have video games where we're being programmed at young ages to feel like it's acceptable. Then you get to the point of the drone attacks where it feels exactly the same thing, and it becomes a numbing thing. It doesn't become a real thing. He even speaks about the Brandon Bryant, that he lost his respect for life.
Yeah, but arguably the analog version of that has the same result. Like, I'm pretty sure I've heard veterans say the same thing, that like killing the first guy is terrible.
Now,
by the third one, you're just numb, regardless of its digital form, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it would be a little bit more extreme if you're sitting there and you watch the guy blown to shreds, or if
Sure.
you're watching it on the
Sure,
screen.
sure.
I think they
Was he
still
the
go
one to
through
press the
same
button
experience.
though? Was he the one to press the button?
Yes, he was. So
He's the one to fire the missile.
There's multiple groups, multiple
Okay.
people that work on the same project that's going on at the same time. So it's
Yeah.
not just his on him
I thought he was
himself.
just the one flying the drone and somebody else presses the button. I thought
Well,
that-
there's times when he's flying the drone and he's pressing the button.
It
but
would-
in
It would be
these
really
cases-
nice if the drone didn't have to carpet bomb, but it could like fly in through a window, down. You know what I mean? And like down into a basement.
yeah,
just,
like the little
brrrr,
ones, like
you
the
know
little
what I
Yeah,
ones. Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, that would be the perfect scenario because no troops on the ground. You kill what you need to kill, and you're
I mean,
out.
I'm in. Trust me, I'm in agreement with with no boots on the ground. The better. That means less lives being taken in those situations. But as long as we can fix it to the point where there's not so many other casualties that are happening that are not related to the war that's going on. You know what I mean? Like it's not civilian based.
And
It's
I-
like
Again, I agree with you. I think in the current status quo, I would have to say that if there are civilians, or you don't know if there are civilians, and or other kids, boots on the ground is what you're gonna have to do to take out the targets. I don't agree with carpet bombing civilians, and as tough as that sounds, because I can hear an argument saying, well, you're gonna send one of our own to die because you're worried about a civilian. I'd be like, well, that is kind of what they signed up for, isn't it? That's why they went into the military.
That's war. And if you have that argument, it's like, well, then you get out there and do that. Then don't cause a war if you can't be able to make that decision. That's like you just said. You made that decision.
Yeah.
You decided you want to go into the military, knowing the repercussions of what can happen.
But
Every
it just-
action has a reaction.
But I just
And
want to
then
be clear. Like when I hear things like, "Oh, but they kill 3 and the other 10 weren't combatants," that's misleading because although they weren't combatants, that doesn't mean they're not bad guys. They could be civilians and be bad guys. So like, it's just tough. There's a lot of context there that needs to be kind of shown and described because it can be misleading otherwise. Anyway.
absolutely.
It's kind of like the movie Sniper. You've seen the movie Sniper, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You guys seen it? You remember when
Yeah.
the lady hands the kid that bomb and he was
Yeah.
going for the thing, and he in his mind he was like, I can't shoot this kid. I can't shoot this kid. But he did it. He did it anyways to
That's
save
nothing
him.
new. Vietnam.
I know, but like
they had
but like,
tons of that stuff.
I'm just saying what that has to do to you as a person is just like
Yeah, I mean, and that's
I
the
mean,
other thing too is like, and that's why I can't really get like, dude, it's really hard if you are in war and you're saving people, and some of the people you are saving are walking up to you and saying thank you, and then opening up their chest and they have TNT and they blow up your best friend. You're like,
Yeah.
what the heck? Like everything, like it's your life, so you're gonna point a gun at every single civilian, tell them to get on the ground, strip. And until it's completely safe, then you embrace. But like, I mean, and then yeah, someone running at you, and even if they're civilian, it's either I take the chance that they have TNT and they're running at me and they're gonna blow me up, or I shoot them in the legs or whatever. Like, you have to make those split second decisions, and a lot of times, your fight or flight mode comes in and you take the shot. It's really tough. Like it's really hard. There's a lot of context, goes into these decisions and scenarios. Anyway, we're running a little late.
Yep.
Is it okay if we move on to the next topic?
Yes,
Yes.
This is a
absolutely.
really great topic. Maybe we can talk about it some